Hey, what's up? We are back with another episode of the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We're sitting down with my buddy, Dan Brault. Dan, what's up, man? Glad to have you, bro.
Rafael, good to see you again.
Likewise, likewise. I mean, we've talked a ton of times before, and I've been fortunate enough to see your development in this last year, actually, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And I know you go way back. You started your first business about 5 years ago, jumped into real estate. Before then, you were doing medical device sales. So you were, toe to toe on sales and the rejection and everything that it takes, to get things done. And it's amazing what you've been able to do over the last, in the first 7 months after you launched this last venture, and now a full year into it almost. But tell us about your entrepreneur journey. How has it been, and a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, so if you go to my Instagram and you look back a few weeks, you'll see a photo of Tony Robbins holding me up high when I was like 3 or 4 years old. Mm-hmm. So personal development, that was part of my life from as early as I can remember. My dad owned a Tony Robbins franchise when I was growing up. So the personal development stuff was always just part of what I did and who I was. So I felt like I didn't even have a choice but to become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So,
you were born into
obviously, it. Yeah. That's right. Obviously after college, just like a lot of people do, I tried a bunch of different things. Got deep into medical device sales, was doing really well. It's a great job. Easy, pretty much. If you're doing a good job, you're going to make 6 figures pretty easily. So I wasn't struggling by any means. I just knew that I had that itch. Mm-hmm. I've had it my whole life that I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to create my own things. I wanted to call the shots. Mm-hmm. And so there was a period of about a year where I was still full-time in medical device, and I was doing real estate on the side. I had bought some rental properties. I was doing my first flip. I did all the work myself on nights and weekends, which was just awful.
Yeah, been there, yeah.
Yeah. So made a lot of mistakes there. But learned a lot. That's part of the process, right? You do something, you mess up half of it, and you learn, and you do it again, and then you only mess up 25%, and then you get a little bit better each time. Yeah. So after not too long, I realized that I was not the right guy to be doing the work on the houses. So started delegating a lot more. That is definitely still a difficulty for me, being a sort of a control freak and wanting to have a say in everything. Delegating is not my strong suit, but I'm working on it.
It's important. You've said a couple of really big things, and I don't mean to cut you off, but before, because I'm going to forget. It's important to have that awareness, right? It sounds like you're aware of the stuff that you're really good at. And as an entrepreneur, granted, yeah, we have to wear a lot of the hats when we're starting off, but it's important to understand when to start delegating that stuff, and when it becomes more of a hindrance and an obstacle rather than you being efficient and effective at your business. And you're also a systems guy. Like, I know that for a fact. You're a very, very systems oriented type of guy, that's a whole, the whole purpose of building an infrastructure like that, right? Building a business as opposed to a side job or a hustle. It takes, putting attention into those businesses and then just plugging people into it and let the talent do the work, right?
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck, is they get stuck in doing everything themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not in the owner's box only. I'm working to get there, but that's where a lot of us get stuck, is because we just want to go, and then we end up just doing everything ourselves. And so we can usually do a lot of things well, and it gets the business to a certain point, but then at a point we also become the bottleneck.
Absolutely.
Because our time it's limited. We can't do everything. And so I found that that was true for me in one of my current businesses. Is I was trying to do everything, and I was doing a lot of those things well, and that brought me to a certain level of success. But that was also what was keeping me there and not allowing me to grow any further.
Yeah, sometimes it can become a challenge to start letting go. I mean, think of it as it's like your baby. It's like you put this thing together and it's growing, and then it's starting to crawl, and then it starts to walk on its own two little feet, and then it takes poops everywhere, but you still love it. And then it just gets faster, and then starts running. And when it starts, like, you have to look at this thing like a baby, as a bit, the business is a baby. Because I really think that's what it takes. It gets to a point where, okay, you have to release some of that control. You have to, let it do its thing, because you put so much effort into it. And absolutely, I mean, that's where the bottlenecking happens. I mean, I've been guilty of that in the past. And the minute we become bottlenecks to our businesses, we start running the risk of getting burned out. We get overwhelmed. It's inevitable. It's just, it's part of the bottleneck effect, right? You're not going to be able to handle everything. And because of you're fixated on control, you're fixated on making things your way all the time, as opposed to relying on that talent, your stress levels go up. Right. Your attention span gets, crappier. Your focus becomes non-existent, and you're all over the place. And it's a it's a slippery slope once you hit that, that spot. So if your business grows to a good, healthy spot, the first thing I recommend is just, do not be the bottleneck, because you're going to be the biggest problem now instead of the biggest asset. So, what are you doing right now? You do have a couple of different businesses. Break those down for us.
Yeah. So, right now have our growing wholesaling business, primarily focusing on real estate wholesaling. So for anyone who's not super familiar with that, essentially, it's like off-market brokering of real estate transactions. So we work directly to market to the sellers of these properties. We get those properties under contract, and then sell that contract to usually an investor who's either going to flip the property to make a profit, or buy it, rehab it, and hold it as a rental property. So I have that business going. That one I'm super excited about. We're going through a period of refinement. So just hired a rock star integrator operations guy. He is bringing a lot of organization and structure and process to the business, and really helping to define those roles. I tend to be, one of those guys where I have 100 ideas a day, and I tell my team about all of them.
Yeah.
And so he's helping to act as a filter, and helping to prioritize things. And one thing that you said earlier that I want to touch on is that self-awareness. And that is so important for any business owner, because, you can take any sort of a test. So I'm a big fan of the Predictive Index. You can take the, DISC or Myers-Briggs or any of these assessments, but they'll all tell you similar things to a degree, just varying levels of detail. So what I learned through the Predictive Index assessment is, I am basically more of a control freak than pretty much anyone out there. And I'm super impatient. So I want to do a lot, and I want it to happen quickly, and I want change, and I want a lot of rapid stuff occurring. And so I know because of that, I'm not a great manager of people. And so I knew that I needed someone to take on that task. So the leading, managing, holding people accountable of those day-to-day tasks, that stuff just drives me nuts. And I know that most of it's my fault, because I'm 10 steps ahead, and I tell them about something. I under-explain it, even though I think I'm fully explaining it. So they don't get all the instructions they need. And I'm 10 steps ahead already. So I'm wondering why it's not already done. And, so it creates a difficulty. And so me knowing that, it allowed me to step back and say, all right, I need someone who can do this really well, because I'm not the best fit for it. And so as I was hiring, I looked for someone that had those characteristics that I don't. And that really helped me to make the best hiring decision. And only here in the second week, I mean, it's paying off huge.
One thing, and this is coming from like the old school way of thinking, was that if you're not good at it, you have to dial it in and learn it. I think times have shifted, and you're hitting the nail right on the head by saying that, because it makes perfect sense. If you're really good at something, why would you want to spend your mental energy into stuff that you don't like, you're not good at, or you just, like, for example, there's a lot of things that I suck at and I don't touch.
Right.
Like, oh, you know what, that's not my thing, I suck at it. It's like, I may know enough to be dangerous on it, but I don't want to do it.
Right.
And I don't want to become an expert at it. So I'll get somebody and plug somebody into that space that's going to be a lot better than me. One of them, for example, editing and video and audio and all that stuff. I've dabbled with that thing, with that stuff for years, because I wanted to learn it, and then it's a whole different beast. Like, it's not in my lane, you know what I mean? So sticking to our lane and really finding out what our strengths are and capitalizing on those, building up on those, as opposed to and trying to learn everything and then have absolute control of what's happening. At the end of the day, that's impossible anyways. And it just creates, tension and friction in your organization, in your companies. So you have the real estate business, and then I know you were tapping into some other stuff, which was on the digital side of things. And the point that I'm trying to highlight here is that it's, once you become an entrepreneur, once you start looking or thinking outside the box, it's almost like breaking a jar or a vase. Like, it's hard to put back to, like, you can't put it back together exactly as it was. It's never going to be the same thing. It's the same thing with the entrepreneur mindset. Once we break that box that that kind of keeps us in the small thinking, once you break it, you can't put it back. Like, you can't put all this stuff back in there and then just go back to that 9 to 5 or start thinking the same way when you're a true entrepreneur. Especially if you're avid to taking risks, which you are. You jump from a 6-digit payroll to, like, let's see what happens if I do this by myself. Yeah. That's huge, bro. It's big kudos on that. So what does it take as far as mindset? What are the biggest challenges that you've seen within yourself to be able to take those types of actions?
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur, they start a business for a reason. There's some bigger reason, whether they know it consciously or not. So whether it's getting away from some major pain that they had experienced at some point in the past and just wanting such a drastic change that that just drives them, or wanting to give their family a certain type of lifestyle, or give to a certain cause, or share something that they've learned. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, I'm not shy about it. There was a period where I really didn't want to talk about it, but there was a period where real estate, a series of big mistakes had led me to a point where I lost everything. I was selling stuff out of my house. I was selling my rental properties. I liquidated my 401k. I sold my truck. I was talking with bankruptcy attorneys. I had developed an ulcer because of all the stress. I wasn't sleeping. It was awful. And I learned so much through that process about the power of other people and their generosity and connection, and relying on them and not having to do it myself. And so being able to build back up from that point to get me to where I am now, I want to share a lot of what I've learned. And so that's why I started one of these other businesses where, sales is probably my strongest area. I've been doing it since college. I have thousands of hours practicing sales, and I've just been really good at it the whole time I've been doing it. And so that's one of the things that I teach other people how to do. And I love that, because it's a value that I'm able to bring to other people that gives them the ability to change their lives
Mm-hmm.
and change the lives of others. And so, and there's a few other things that we're doing that allows other people to just change their trajectory. And for me, that's so important, because that's what entrepreneurship allows you to do. It allows you to take control and speed up that timeline and connect with other people at a whole nother level that you could never do working at a 9 to 5. And yes, there are much bigger risks, because you don't have another source of income. You are the source of income. And so you have to be a little bit more risk tolerant in the short term. And the way I view it, you can either be risk tolerant in the short term and be willing to risk those failures in the short term by going at it on your own, or you can take the long-term risk of never really living the life that you want to live and never really going for it. And you get to the end of your career and you wish you had made so many different choices. And then you live with that your whole life. But by that point, it's almost too late. So you can either take that short-term risk and be uncomfortable in the short term, or you can be comfortable right now and be uncomfortable for the rest of your life. So for me, I mean, that's not even a choice. I am not willing to get to the end of my career. I'll probably never stop working, let's face it.
I know. We're wired like that, man. It's insane.
Yeah. But, I would rather take those risks now, mess up now, while I'm chasing my dreams, while I'm chasing those big goals, and learn along the way, instead of do something safe and steady that I know isn't what I really want to be doing and feel secure for my 40 years and then retire unsatisfied and unfulfilled.
Totally get it. I totally get it, man. And it's everybody has their own definition of success, right? Everybody, for example, I'm not bashing 9 to 5 or I mean, there's a lot of people are perfectly happy in that space. For a few, we're not. I know I couldn't subscribe to doing the same thing over and over again and having this glass ceiling over my head, because I believe in not just, the potential that we as people, as humans have, but I think there's just more. There's more to enjoy. There's more to be impactful in, and the way you do it is by taking on things as they come at you, and then being open to that level of mitigated risk, right? That's big. But one thing that I've seen people and this is actually a thought that I had at the beginning when all the fears were creeping up, and do I have what it takes? I mean, am I going to make the leap from a very stable place where I was working at, and I loved it. I mean, super great career, but bet on yourself. It's totally different, right? and the thought back then was, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? And that just went on forever until it clicked. I mean, like, what if it does? And when I understood that, the paradigm just shifted. I was like, holy shit, what if it does work? Yeah. What if I'm able to, to do this as an entrepreneur, bet on myself, and then just create the life that, that I want, and build, the future that I want to build, make the impact that I want to, make. And it's crazy, but that's been what I was thinking about in, those days. It's been done, right? But what happens is that we start evolving as human beings. We start evolving in terms of mindset, in terms of vision, in terms of the, the things that we want to pursue, the impact that we want to make. And then the relationships that keep coming into our sphere help that up. I mean, you're very well familiar with that. We roll around, some of the same circles, and the people around him. It's just like, there's no way that vision is going to stop. And it's like adding, wood to the fire. Per se, but it really strengthens that that mindset. The hunger for growth, the hunger to become better, and do better as an overall human being.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't mean to knock 9 to 5s. There are plenty of people that is what they want to be doing. Mm-hmm. What I want to stress is the difference between doing something that's safe and secure that you know isn't what you want to be doing, and actually going for it, whether that is just some other dream job that you've always had, and that can be with another company or a company of your creation. Mm-hmm. What I stress to people is either way, it's a risk. You can risk being unsatisfied and unhappy in the long term, or you can risk the short-term discomfort.
Right.
So whether it's with another company or on your own, that, to me, it's not a choice. And it's just getting people to realize and have that awareness in them that one way or another, you're taking a risk. And if you really want to feel satisfied in your life, you need to be making progress towards the things that are most important to you, the things that you value the most. And for most entrepreneurs, that is around growth. And that's why we're constantly joining these masterminds and getting coaching and mentoring, and we're teaching at the same time, and we're just constantly connecting with new people and working to level up in any way we can. And it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes an addiction to getting better and growing and making progress. And that alone, that process, even though it can sometimes be painful, is so satisfying.
So, from your standpoint, how do you break into something like that when somebody's having hesitations and somebody's, double guessing themselves, and maybe I can't make it, maybe this is going to be hard, I'm going to suck at it, this is just way too dangerous, I'm happy where I'm at, and then they start doing, all this fallacies, right? This self-validation of why they're where they're at, make sense. How does somebody break down from that, or how did you break away from that space?
Yeah, I think that setting goals, having that self-awareness is super important. So going through, what are your actual priorities in life? What do you value the most? What does your ideal life look like? And for most people, that's a scary thought, because then they see the discrepancies between where they are now and the path they're on and where they would really want to be. And most people do not pursue their dreams. And that's why most people have these big regrets. And so, yes, you will mess up. Yes, you will fail. But that's going to happen no matter what you do. So you might as well fail at doing something that you really want to do and really want to go after. No matter how much you prepare, no matter how much you study, no matter how much you read, how many YouTube videos you watch, you will still mess up. It is absolutely guaranteed. If you wait till you're 100% ready, you'll just never start, because it's never going to happen.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
You can make the perfect plan and other stuff will still happen, because there's the outside world that has its own agenda. Mm-hmm. And you can't anticipate everything that's going to happen. And so you just have to know that you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be failures. And the only way to keep getting better is to realize that and learn from them, and then make adjustments. And that is a continuous process. And people think that, success is what they see on Instagram of the guy standing in front of the Lamborghini and the mansion, and then he got there in such a smooth path. No, that guy got there because of all of the failures that he has learned to overcome. And through those lessons, he learned how to avoid those problems the next time they came up. But then when he's done with that one, another problem comes up that's even bigger. And then he probably stumbles his way through that one, but then along the way, he learns. And now the next time a problem like that comes up, he knows how to handle that one. And that is just a continuous process. And through that process, we are growing, and our personal satisfaction and fulfillment is growing. And that is what growth looks like. Growth isn't like this. Growth is like you stumble and you learn, and then you gain, and then you stumble and you learn.
Level
and it's
up
just
a little bit, come back.
Constantly messing up. I make mistakes every day, but I'm learning from them. And so once you can make that mental switch, like, I'm going to mess up, it's guaranteed, you can learn to not beat yourself up about it. You can say, oh yeah, that was dumb, I shouldn't have done that. All right, what do I learn from it? What am I going to do differently next time? And then you do that differently next time. You actually take action on what you learned. Like that's the key. If you can realize those few things, like, you're going to mess up, it's guaranteed, there's no avoiding it. And as long as you learn from it and keep going and apply those lessons, you will get to where you want to go. Like, that, I think, is the main thing that I could say.
Wow. Yeah, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson, right? Everything that happens, if you don't do anything with it, then it's a mistake. It's like a fart in the wind. It goes away and then you just did something bad. But if you learn from it, it's a lesson. It's a lesson. It's something that's going to save you, going forward. I'm going through this idea, right? And I picked it up on one of my recent books. It's about being integrated as a whole. And this is talking at the personal level, right? Integrate with the self. That's one, but I think it applies very well, or it transfers very well over to entrepreneurship. You have to be an integrated entrepreneur. You have to understand your flaws. You have to understand the great things about you, what your lane is, the difficulties of being an entrepreneur, and embrace the whole thing, because it's a big, massive bowls too. I mean, you have some great stuff in there, some weird stuff, and then you have some, but it's, at the end of the day, it's all in one single, bowl, right? It's this one single context. So it's super important to be an integrated entrepreneur, so you can deal with it from the mindset standpoint, and be, able to do the stuff that, for example, you've been able to do over the last, over the years. Yeah, man, that's that's great advice. I love it. So you're really good at sales. If let's get a little pragmatic on this. Sales and systems. I mean, I know that's your thing. Give me the top 3 things that somebody tapping into sales or uncomfortable with sales should be focusing on.
And the first one is stop trying to sell to everybody. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is that they try to, every single lead that comes across their desk or pops in their email, they try to turn that person into a deal. And if you do that, you're just going to be wasting so much time with so many people who are either completely unqualified for what we do or have no intention of actually selling their property. So you just end up on these 20-minute conversations, and then you find out that it was never a deal to begin with, when if you were to ask the right questions and disqualify them at the right times, that could have been a 2-minute conversation. And now that's more time you can now spend with people that are actually worth your time.
Yeah.
So number one, stop spending time with people who are not qualified, and stop trying to sell to everybody. Second one I would say is, we are not here to convince anybody of anything. If you're having to convince them of all the reasons why you are their best option, and I mean, you're trying to sell them, you're telling them all the reasons. I mean, you've probably heard the phrase, telling isn't selling. Yeah. And you hear these salespeople touting all their features and benefits. Oh, I can buy as is. I pay cash. I close on your timeline. Like, well, you know what? Every other cash buyer is going to do those exact same things. Right. So they're really not differentiators in any way. And so they're hearing that same spiel. And so if you're trying to convince them, you're really not convincing them of anything. You're just coming off desperate. You have that commission breath that they can smell from a mile away. And so, I mean, I tell my students, like, you need to go in with the mindset that you are financially independent and you do not need this business, because then it comes off very differently. Every time I talk to a seller, I say, and by the end of the call, we'll have a pretty good idea of whether or not it makes sense to work together. And either way is totally fine. And I mean that, because if it doesn't make sense to work together, let's just end the call. Let's not waste each other's time.
Yeah, why waste time? Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, I mean, that is so key. There's so many people just wasting so much time, and you're trying to push them hard and tell them all these reasons, and it just doesn't work. And then going for that, one other big one that comes to mind is going for that hard close. I just don't think that works either. It especially when it comes to selling a house. I mean, that's a big ticket thing. So there's a lot of emotion tied with that. I'll actually have one more that on top of this one, but when you're trying to close someone really hard, if you have to do that, you've already messed up. Like, if they're not already on board with wanting to do business with you by the time it comes to the end of the call and you have to close them hard, you already messed up. It's too late already. Or you need to backtrack because you missed some things.
Yeah.
So if you're having to convince them to do business with you by that point, you miss some stuff that you need to cover, or your process is flawed and you need to fix that process. Because when you get to that end of the appointment, they should be like, oh, you know what? You are my best option. I'm going to just go with you. It shouldn't be this hard close. You don't need all these closing tactics. There's thousands of them out there. You don't need those. If in real estate, if you need to use all those, you messed up the other 99% of that appointment.
Absolutely. And it's and it transfers. I think it transfers to every other field. It's simple, it's basic principles, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, say the other one that you had before I
Yeah, the other one, and I agree, this goes for any type of sales, but people make decisions emotionally and then they justify those logically. And so if you're really trying to, so let's just say it's for a house, right? So we're both in real estate. So you're trying to buy someone's house at a discounted price. Well, you're only going to get the best price if you're truly solving their actual pain, their real issue, not the surface level issue that they come to tell you about. It's like someone says, oh, I just want to move. Well, there's something behind that. No one just wants to move. Most people don't enjoy that process, the packing up, the picking out a new place, the actual moving, the unpacking. It's not fun. So no one just moves out of a perfectly good house. Like, there's an actual reason behind that. And so getting to the emotion behind it, like the frustration or the worry or the just any feeling, that's what you need to get to, is the feeling. And then the price becomes a reflection of the problem that you're solving. And so if you go out there and you're solving this surface level issue that they have no real emotional attachment to, you're probably not going to get a good price, or your closing ratio is going to be a lot lower. And because of these tactics, and because that I focus on getting that real pain, I mean, that's the reason that I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've been able to close at a rate more than double the industry standard, because I have this process that I follow. And those 4 things that I just mentioned are so key. And most people just don't do that. They don't get to that real pain. They're constantly pushing, and they're wasting time with people that aren't actually qualified.
Yeah, man, that's huge. And it again, it goes on for different verticals. We're always being sold, right? We're always being sold, and we're always selling, almost unintentionally. Whenever you make an introduction, whenever you talk to somebody new, whenever you're meeting somebody for the first time, you're selling yourself as a person. But I think these principles are big. I mean, stop selling everyone. So look at your ideal client, and it doesn't matter what business you're in. Do not convince, because if you have to convince, it means that you don't have the product that they want. You're trying to get something out of, nothing. Don't go for the hard close. I so agree with that one. And people do buy emotionally. They justify logically. I love those four. And it transfers over. I mean, I'm sure you had the same, the same type of stuff whenever you went back to medical sales. I mean, cars, it happens in cars, it happens in bro, go to Starbucks. They're doing the exact same stuff. They're not convincing you to buy a coffee. You're already there. Why? Because you're solving a problem. What's your problem? Maybe you need to sit down for a couple of minutes and, break out your laptop. I mean, that's that's a solution they're solving, and then, they're not selling to everyone. Just, there are certain, people go to Starbucks, and then there's people who hate Starbucks and they don't care. So I like it, man. I like it. Those are super good, super good golden nuggets there. I appreciate that. So before we start wrapping up, there's this one question that I like to ask all the time. It's if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
Ooh, I like it. Man, I would say you're gonna mess up, but keep going. And never stop working on yourself. And I mean, if those things, so reading good books, connecting yourself with good people, breaking away from the connections that aren't helping you. And a little side note, I mean, that's one thing that's difficult to do, is breaking away from some of those relationships that no longer serve your larger purpose. And sometimes that can be these long-standing relationships. And I've had to do that personally with people that I was friends with for years and years. And we started going down very different paths, and we started caring about very different things. And it can still be, I mean, it is hard because your values change, and the people that you hang out with, they rub off on you. And so that's why it's so important to be surrounding yourself with the right people. You want to surround yourself with those that you want to be more like, that have similar values and priorities to you, that are doing the stuff you want to do. Most people have heard that quote, never be the smartest person in the room. Well, there's a reason for that, because if you're not the smartest person in the room, you're going to be learning from all those other people that are smarter than you. And that's what's key. But if you're an eagle and you're hanging out with some chickens, you're going to start acting like a chicken.
Yeah.
So you got to start, you got to hang out with those people and learn from those people, whether through their books, their classes, their programs, just messaging them, hearing them talk, spending time with them. There's so many people to get connected one way or another with the type of people you should be spending time with, and making that conscious decision is super important.
Beautiful. I love it. And I completely agree. What are, give me top 3 books. I know you read, I can tell from your background. And give me the top 3 books that you would recommend somebody starting off as an entrepreneur.
And that's a tough one. So I think one key thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't know how to do is how to structure a business. And this, I mean, it's not sexy stuff, but not everything in running a business is. But if you want a real business, you need to know how to structure and actually run a business. And so one really popular book that I know a lot of people have heard of is Traction.
Love it.
And so one of the books by Gino Wickman, there's many books in that series, but it's part of the entrepreneurial operating system. That one will help you to define different roles in the organization, key ways to set it up, key meetings you need to be having. So that one I think is super important. I would say I'd have to pick some sort of a personal development book, because I think as an entrepreneur, that's something you can never stop doing. You always need to be improving yourself. The one who got me started, Tony Robbins. I mean, I'd have to, honestly, I love all of his books. Awaken the Giant Within is a classic. That's one of my favorites. It just, brevity isn't one of Tony Robbins' strong suits. So, all
Right.
of his books are like 700 pages, but they're so good. So if you can work your way through that, I mean, it's an amazing read. And then another one of my recent favorites, The Ultimate Sales Machine. And that one, really gets into a lot of sales tactics, a lot of methodology, a lot of the follow-up. It goes into ad copy. It goes into all these different techniques you can use, how to run your business, different meetings you can have, but more specifically around sales, which if you're an entrepreneur, you have to know how to do sales or hire someone that can do sales, because you're not going to have a business without it.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. Passion gets you to a place, but if you can't sell anything, you can't keep the lights on.
Yeah.
You can't keep the lights on.
Yeah.
I love it. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, where is it that they can reach you at?
Yeah. So real quick, thank you so much for bringing me on. I always love these conversations, and just being able to share my story, my experience, my struggles, and advice with other people. I mean, if anyone can get even one tip out of this that can help them either through a difficult time or get to that next level in any way, I'd say this was worth it. So for anyone that wants to hear more or follow me in any way, I'm always trying to put out value and help people. Like I said, I've been helped a lot, so I want to put that same stuff out there. So best way to reach me is on Instagram at Action Dan Bro, and that's action spelled the usual way, Dan, and then Bro, BRO.
You just got a backstage pass to the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and iTunes, and check out our website at ceopulse.com. Stay tuned, stay focused, you got this.